She just wanted gas. That's it. But to them, she was just another nobody they could push around. It was late, past midnight. The air felt heavy, like it was carrying a warning. Angela Parker, 41 years old, a single mother who worked 2 jobs. She pulled into that gas station running on fumes. Her son's basketball tournament was 2 hours away, and she had barely enough money to make it there. She didn't notice the patrol car at first, didn't notice the 2 officers leaning against it, sipping coffee, smirking. Not until she swiped her card at the pump, and one of them shouted, "Hey, you sure you can afford that?" Angela froze. She glanced up. 2 white officers, both in full uniform, both looking at her like she didn't belong there. She forced a polite smile. "Yes, I can." But that wasn't enough for them. They started walking over. One tapped the top of her car with his flashlight, like he was inspecting it for something to mock. "What's a car like this doing in this neighborhood?" one asked. The other laughed. "Probably stolen." Angela swallowed hard. "No, it's mine. I work hard for what I have." That should have been the end of it, but they circled her like vultures. "Where you coming from? Where you headed? Got ID? Registration?" She handed it over, her hands shaking, not from guilt, but from the shame of knowing people inside the store were watching. One officer muttered, "Probably one of those who thinks the law doesn't apply to her." The other chuckled, "Relax. We're just making sure she's safe." Safe. That word hit Angela like a slap, because she knew what they meant. She knew they weren't protecting her. They were flexing power they thought she couldn't challenge. Then, they made their biggest mistake. As one officer walked back to the car to run her plates, the other leaned close and whispered just loud enough, "Women like you should know your place." Angela didn't respond, not because she was afraid, but because she was already planning something they didn't see coming. What they didn't know? Angela's older brother wasn't just anyone. He wasn't a local activist. He wasn't a small-town lawyer. He was the governor, Governor Marcus Parker, a man who had grown up in the same rough neighborhood as Angela, a man who had spent years fighting for people who never got a fair shot. Angela didn't like using his name for special treatment. She believed in fighting her own battles. But tonight, they'd crossed a line. While the officers laughed, Angela quietly pressed record on her phone. She caught every smirk, every word, every insult. Then she said calmly, "I think you should know. This conversation is being documented." The officer's smile faded just a bit. "Oh? You think that's gonna scare me?" Angela tilted her head. "Not yet." She took her receipt from the pump, got back in her car, and drove away. Slow, steady, controlled. She didn't speed, didn't give them a reason to pull her over, but she knew. Before the night was over, the game would change. When she got home, she sent the video to one person, her brother. It was 1:14 a.m. when he called. His voice was calm, too calm. "Angela, where exactly was this?" She told him. He didn't say much else, just, "I'll handle it." The next morning, those same 2 officers were back at that gas station. leaning against the same patrol car, same coffee cups. Only this time, the gas station owner walked out, pale-faced. "You might want to head back to the station. The governor's here." They laughed like it was a joke, until they turned and saw him, Governor Marcus Parker, flanked by reporters, cameras, and the state's Attorney General. The crowd was silent. The governor's voice cut through the air. "Gentlemen, do you recognize this woman?" He turned his phone screen toward them. Angela's video played. The officers' own voices echoed back at them, dripping with arrogance. Their smirks vanished. Marcus didn't yell, didn't curse. He just looked at them with the weight of someone who had seen this too many times. "You thought you were intimidating a random woman. You thought you were untouchable. But here's the thing. When you target one of us, you answer to all of us." The officers shifted nervously. One opened his mouth to speak, but Marcus held up a hand. "This isn't your chance to explain. It's your chance to listen." He turned to the cameras. "This is what abuse of power looks like. It's small moments like these that build into big injustices, and it stops here." The Attorney General stepped forward. "Effective immediately. These officers are suspended pending investigation." The crowd erupted. But Marcus, he wasn't smiling because he knew suspension wasn't the same as justice. Not yet. Angela watched from her car, her heart pounding. She wanted to believe it was over, that this was the turning point. But as she glanced in her rearview mirror, she saw something that made her stomach drop. A black SUV, tinted windows, following her. Because when you stand up to the wrong people, sometimes they don't just back down. Sometimes they come back harder. Angela told herself she was imagining it, that the black SUV in her mirror was just coincidence. But then, it turned when she turned, slowed when she slowed, stayed back just far enough to not look obvious, but close enough that she could feel it breathing down her neck. Her phone was in her lap. Her brother's name one swipe away. But she didn't call, not yet. She'd been harassed before. She'd been intimidated before. But something about tonight felt different, calculated. The governor's press conference had been all over the news. Clips of Marcus calling out those officers were replayed on every channel. Angela's face had been blurred in most videos. But in small towns, it doesn't take long for word to spread. At the next light, the SUV pulled up beside her. Tinted window. A faint hum of the engine. And then, the glass slid down. A man in a dark suit. Sunglasses even at night. No smile, just a slow, deliberate glance. Angela's chest tightened. Not a cop, not someone from the neighborhood. And yet, there was something in his expression, like he was letting her know. "I know exactly who you are." The light turned green. He didn't move. He just waited, forcing her to drive off first. Angela's hands were sweating on the wheel. Her mind was racing back to every warning Marcus had ever given her about power. How you see the game changes once you realize not all pieces are on the board. She pulled into her driveway, her headlights sweeping across the small house she'd fought so hard to keep. She sat there a moment, watching the street. The SUV didn't pass. didn't drive away, it just disappeared. The next morning, Angela's phone buzzed before sunrise. Unknown number. She let it ring. Then came the text. Nice speech from your brother, but tell him some fights aren't worth winning. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't just about the officers anymore. This was bigger. At the governor's mansion, Marcus was already in a meeting when Angela burst through the door. Two aides tried to stop her, but Marcus stood and waved them away. "What's wrong?" She handed him the phone. He read the text, jaw tightening. Then he set it down slowly, like a man who understood exactly what this meant. "They're not going to stop, Angela. Suspending those officers? That wasn't the end. That was the beginning." "Beginning of what?" she asked. He looked her dead in the eye. "Of them testing how far we're willing to go." Later that day, Marcus arranged for a security team to follow Angela everywhere. She didn't like it, but she knew she didn't have a choice. For the next 48 hours, things were quiet. Too quiet. Until Thursday night. Angela was locking up her job at the diner when her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, a picture. Her son, walking home from basketball practice, taken from across the street. Her knees buckled. Her security team wasn't there. They'd been called away for urgent reassignment just an hour earlier. Her phone rang instantly after. Same number. She answered, her voice trembling. "What do you want?" The voice on the other end was low, calm, almost polite. "Just a conversation. Meet us. Alone, or the next picture won't be from across the street." Angela didn't speak, didn't breathe. The call ended before she could answer. She turned slowly, and at the far end of the parking lot, that same black SUV engine running.